Alabama devoured Kentucky, but everyone in front of the Crimson Tide won. So what does that mean? We're going to look at the playoff picture, the showdown with mighty Georgia and Atlanta for the SEC championship game because Alabama punched their ticket and a lot more, including Jimbo Fisher without a job. This is Sunday Rollback, and you're on the Bama Tailgate YouTube channel. Roll Tide, everybody. Like and subscribe if you're not part of our channel, and let's get going. Jamming out, baby. Let's go. Roll Tide. He's Chad Anderson, and I'm Mick Gillespie, and you are hanging out with us here on the Bama Tailgate YouTube channel. Sunday Rollback, and it's always fun on Sunday nights to talk, and there's so much to get into. We got a new top 25 that doesn't feel like it's much different than last week's.
Nope.
You got Alabama rolling into Kentucky and rolling out of Kentucky and basically demolishing the Cats. This was supposed to be a year where they had a legitimate team, and all we've seen is Alabama get better. And Jimbo Fisher, the guy that said, hey, Nick Saban, you think he's a god? You think he's a god? No god. Out. That is the big news right now. It's unbelievable. Alabama had a battle with Texas A&M. They lost to the Aggies last year, and that was the first assistant, Chad, to beat Nick Saban, one of his former assistants, to win. But they just haven't figured it out, and they're going to pay this guy $76 million to roll out.
I'd love to be paid $76 million to not do shit. I know that.
Crazy.
Sounds amazing, for being honest. Yeah, what a day. What a day. I don't think Alabama fans could wipe the smiles off their faces if they tried after yesterday's game. Just an absolute beatdown. The confidence that it instilled in the fan base, which I think the fan base was pretty much there after Tennessee, the second half, and after LSU. But yesterday was that old school Nick Saban go on the road and whip somebody's ass in their home stadium. And that's the joyless murder ball that everyone likes to see, is when Alabama goes in there and just punishes them like they used to, Mick. I mean, just relentless, both sides of the ball. Like everything just kind of clicked, fell in place. It was a beautiful, beautiful game played by Alabama. So nice job there. I know we'll get into it in the playoff picture and the top 25 and everything. Yesterday, 3 teams ahead of the Crimson Tide all struggled, but still ended up pulling away, finding ways to win and whatnot. It's unfortunate. I'm still in the style points camp that you don't necessarily have to have them because the teams in front of Bama just aren't losing. So you're not even on even playing fields other than Texas and Oregon with one loss. But I will say one thing, Georgia kind of has the previous Alabama ability where they flip a switch. And when they get pissed, man, look out. That team poured it on the Rebels last night. And I know Alabama's a better team than the Rebels, but Georgia's kind of doing that to everybody, except, Missouri hung around a little bit longer. But you talk about style points, Mick. What Georgia did to Ole Miss helps Alabama.
Yes.
Now you just need Georgia to go do that to Tennessee. Like, you really don't need the media to have any reason to think Georgia is limping by teams. They're beating people convincingly. Thank God they did that to Ole Miss. I really hope they do that on Rocky Top next week. If they can do that, that's going to help Alabama when they beat them in Atlanta here in a few weeks.
Yeah, look, I'm with you on that. And Alabama and Georgia matchup again in Atlanta. There's been some epic battles between these two teams in the domes up there. And I say the domes, the new place, the old place, it doesn't matter. But, it's going to be an interesting game. Tennessee got clobbered by Missouri, and Missouri's for real. I underestimated Missouri. So did Tennessee. They won 8 games, which is crazy to me. 8, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
8-2.
They're 8-2, which is just for Missouri. If I'm Drinkowitz, I'm getting the hell out of there as soon as I can. And maybe, Texas A&M's looking over there going, hey, this guy won in Missouri. He can definitely win at Texas A&M. I don't know what's going to happen with that job, but I do know that Missouri's a good football team. Georgia struggled with them a couple weeks ago, and now you know why.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, Alabama, if everyone wins out and then Alabama beats Georgia, I think that as long as everything kind of works the way that it's working right now, I think Alabama has a slight advantage to somehow get past Texas, who they lost to get into the national championship game. And that's just from looking at like the playoff predictor and the percentages. Georgia's the team that needs teams to lose, because when they lose to Alabama, they're going to be out looking in unless some havoc happens. And there was no havoc last night. Miami put up a fight against Florida State and lost. The officiating was very suspicious in that Washington-Utah game. It was unbelievable. And Washington magically won, right? And they tried to give it away, but they both won. Oregon took care of USC. And so everyone ahead of Alabama won. And I guess it's a good time to just throw this on the stage here. This is the top 25 poll, and it's exactly the same. Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, Florida State, Washington, which rightly so, right? They're all undefeated.
Yeah, no problems there.
Except, and then Oregon, which I'm with you on this. Oregon, I don't think Oregon should be ahead of Texas and Alabama, but they are.
I don't get it. I don't get the infatuation with Oregon. Sorry to cut you off there, but just real quick on Oregon. I don't understand the obsession. I don't understand why people are just so in love with this team. I get it. They played Washington tight up at Washington, and it came down to a missed field goal, and that's how they lost the game. But they've beaten no one else other than Utah. Now, they dismantled Utah, but their resume doesn't stack up. I don't know. I just look at Alabama and Texas, and I go, man, Alabama's beaten 3-4 top 25 teams, 5 teams with a 500 record or better.
Right.
Texas has beaten good ranked opponents multiple times, not just once. Texas's only loss is to a top 25 team. Bama's only loss is to number 7 Texas.
Right.
So Oregon's loss isn't bad either. So you just say, okay, well, Oregon and Alabama have similar losses. Texas has the worst loss, and we're calling Oklahoma a bad loss, which is not. So then you look at the wins and what you've done. I don't get it. Even the points, like if you look in that second column there and it tells you the points that they accumulate, it's not like Alabama's at 1150 and Texas 1152 and Oregon 1154. There's a decent little gap here where these 3 teams are kind of firmly positioned in that 6, 7, 8 spot that nobody has gained or gotten close to the other. And I just don't get it. I don't get it with Oregon, to be honest.
Well, I think that they're saying, well, they lost one game, and it was to Washington, and it was a close game on the road, and it came down to the end, and Washington's undefeated. And I guess that's what it comes down to. And then Texas beat Alabama. So, I mean, that's where you're looking at it right now. But the SEC is starting to figure out that those teams are getting better. And then the rest of college football's teams, to me, feel like they're kind of going the other direction. And that was because you lose so many guys into the NFL draft. It takes time to kind of figure all of those things out, right? Like to kind of get your new team into it. I mean, look at Alabama. Look at where Jalen Milroe is now, Chad, where everyone across the country is talking about him. He's breaking Alabama records every time, right? Was it 4 touchdowns rushing for a quarterback, first time ever? And then I just see that it's the first time ever that an Alabama quarterback threw for 3 and ran for 3 in the same game ever.
Yep. I know. Think about it. 7 rushing touchdowns from a quarterback over 2 games. It's hard for a running back to get 7 rushing touchdowns over 2 games. And Jalen Milroe, yeah, he just keeps defying the odds. He keeps, it's Link, right?
Yeah.
LANK. Let all naysayers know. And that's what he's doing right now. It's funny because you watch him go on some of these shows, and I know you're friends with Lance Taylor. I don't know Lance, but I think he's funny and I enjoy some of his content. And Milroe the other day on the next round let him know, like, hey, it's people like you, Lance. This is the whole thing. And he was kind of messing with him, like, I love it. Keep doubting me. This is my deal. It's pretty remarkable if you put Jalen Milroe in week 2 compared to Jalen Milroe in week, what are we in, 11, 12 now?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's you can say you saw it. Nobody saw this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Nobody saw this. This is crazy.
Yeah. Look, and I'm glad that I'm part of the next round. I mean, not necessarily that show, but part of Disrupt the Media. I mean, they are the ones that basically have hired Jake Coker and me to do the podcast Elephant in the Room every week. And I love their show. And I'm glad that Jalen Milroe's on there. I told him, I texted him when they announced that they were bringing Milroe in for a weekly appearance. I thought that was awesome.
Yep.
And I loved him on there this week. I've always been critical, and I'll tell you this right now, just kind of a side note. But I texted him, I said, hey, congratulations. I can't wait to hear those two guys on your podcast, and getting Milroe. I mean, that's a big deal. It's, to get the starting quarterback at Alabama. Right. And I'm like, and he's like, yeah, hopefully they'll be good. And I'm like, yeah, most of the time they're not, except Bo Nix. Bo Nix was the best guest on their show, like of any of the players, like the current, like, hey, we're getting paid now, so we need to be on here for name, image, and likeness type thing.
Yeah.
I loved Bo Nix. I mean, he would just get on there and talk shit. He was interesting. He was honest, and I thought Milroe did a good job. Some of them are so bad. It was like who was the softball player that Alabama had? She's amazing softball player.
Current one, Montana.
Montana Fouts, yeah. The worst on there. Like, it was like, what do you it would be like, just it felt like a forced conversation, like when you do an interview as a player, it's tough because you're probably afraid of saying the wrong thing, and you got to relax and be yourself and be confident in what you say, and not worry about it, and I've seen grownups that are the same way too, not to say that these are kids, but they're college students, Right. Bo Nix got on there, and I could listen to Bo Nix. I used to laugh because he would just get on there and say something every week, like he was. I remember he said that the officiating favors Alabama anytime you play them, like the week before the Iron Bowl, we're gonna beat Alabama. Like,
he got that one from Stan White.
Yeah. But I thought he did a really good job. And as great as Montana was as a pitcher, like, I just thought that there was a lot of work to be done as an interview, like as an interviewee. And a lot of them are like that, it's tough to be good at interviewing. I mean, really it is. Right. But I thought Milroe did a good job. Like, I enjoyed it.
No, it's a lot of it is just your personality and then how often you're in the spotlight. And Milroe, I think, just has that personality, just an outgoing guy, likes to be a leader, very vocal, all those things. So it does come, with that territory, because there can be people who are superstars, but they're just more introverted. Like, they're so good at their craft, but they just don't want to talk in front of thousands, tens of thousands, millions of people, whatever it is, whatever platform you're on. So yeah, it can be intimidating, and it can kind of catch you off guard, but yeah, it's not always easy to find good ones, but man, when you do, having a college kid who's willing to just sit there and talk and BS with you and chat and tell you some things, it really is like one of the best interviews you could possibly have in media.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, it gives you like an insight to the team and what they're thinking, and honestly, Booker hasn't been bad this year either. But what Alabama and colleges are doing is they're starting to work with these guys on being better at these things. Like they built that center, which is just for NIL deals. And I'm sure part of that is like doing it, you get better at it, and so pretty cool. But those are two really big ones. You don't want to give the other team bulletin board material. So the best way to do that is just go after LT, right? On the next round. All right, well, let's talk Jimbo Fisher. I mean, this guy's owed $76 million. Texas A&M obviously is a place that has a lot of money where they're going to pay him $76 million over the next how many years is it to go away. That to me is crazy. And who do you think they're going to bring in to replace this guy?
I don't know. I've seen just names off the top of people's heads kind of floating around out there. I don't really know the answer. I mean, there's Mike Elko, who was the D coordinator at A&M before he went to be the head coach at Duke. And in just, I think it's 2 years now, he's got Duke playing some pretty darn good football. So, Elko wouldn't be the sexy hire, but I think that would be a good, just fundamental X's and O's football hire. If you're trying to go for like the bigger name and the bigger splash, I've said this, like because this is how Texas A&M thinks, right? Like they're not Alabama. But Mick, if Nick Saban said in 3 weeks, hey, I'm out, I'm done, I'm going to the lake, I'm going to watch the ducks shit off the dock or whatever he said that time, like that's where I'm headed. Okay, like that's what I'm doing.
Did he say that?
He
would
did.
say that.
Have you ever seen Will Ezel's imitation of Nick Saban from like 10 years ago? Yeah. That's where I got it from. Apparently Saban would always say that kind of stuff or something that alludes to it. Hey, he loves the D's nuts jokes. I know that.
Yeah.
So if
so does my son, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know. I'm sure my kids are going to learn them soon.
Oh boy.
So, but if that was the case, right? Like, who would you want for Alabama? And again, A&M's not Alabama, but they think they're Alabama. And they do have the money that Alabama's got money, but A&M's got a different level of money with all the oil. So, like, if I am Alabama, and this is why I'm using this as my example or my, who would I want to go after and try to justify it? My number one choice would be Sark. That would be my number one. Sark's not going from Texas to A&M though.
Wow, that would be something.
Yeah, he's not. But I'm just saying, if you had the wish list, my top 3 or 5, Sark would be one. I would have Dan Lanning at Oregon as number 2 for me. I would look seriously, even though the culture fit, I think, would just be the most back-asswards thing you've ever seen in your life. But I would say Deion Sanders. Is another.
I like Coach Prime.
Yeah, I love Coach Prime. I just don't see him fitting in with A&M.
Well, he was a Cowboy. Don't forget now. He was a Dallas Cowboy.
You're right. So that would be kind of my top 3. If you look next at, say, like your tier 2 list, I think Lane Kiffin has to fall into that category somewhere, although Lane has now proven he can win 10 games at Ole Miss, but he can't beat Georgia or Alabama. So can he do that if he's at A&M? He blames it on recruiting, which I don't disagree with him, but can he do it at a place like A&M,
right?
With the NIL stuff? Then Elko, just simply from that.
But somebody told me Elko's buyout's like it's like a bunch of money, like 50 million or something.
Doesn't
30
matter
million, like something crazy. I know,
but A&M doesn't matter.
And he's a great coach, like that got overlooked too. I was kind of curious why it took him so long to get a job, and then he's turned Duke into a good team. I watched that game last night. Duke's a pretty good team.
They're a really good team.
They play good football.
They're injured. They're injured. They'd be better. They're just injured.
I know.
They're down to like their 3rd string quarterback, and
he was good.
Competing.
And he was good.
So another one I would throw up there would be, I may be messing up his last name, but Lance Leipold at Kansas.
Yeah, right.
I mean, if you can take Kansas and do that, then why would you not want to take a shot at A&M? Unless you just don't want to live in the fishbowl.
Right.
But so that's 6 names that I would at least chuck out there. I feel like out of those 6, you get one of them. not Sark, but I think out of Lanning, Prime, Lane, Elko, and Leipold, I think between those 5 names, I feel like one of them would say yes.
Well, Lane would say yes if his past doesn't catch up with him. It's the off the field stuff that that he.
I don't know.
Kind of caught him, but he's doing a great job. I mean, even with that ass whooping that they took last night, I still feel like that's turning Ole Miss into a really good team. They just don't have the guys in the trenches to win that.
Like, you realize Lane Kiffin has all his chips on the table for the Alabama job, right?
Yeah, he's not getting it.
Like, he is solely focused on, as soon as Nick Saban says, I'm done, and Reese Davis seems to think that's going to be around 2026, 2027. As soon as Nick Saban says that, Lane Kiffin, me and my brother, Mudcat, we joke about this because we say Lane Kiffin he'll see the announcement. He will literally jump in his car and start driving to Tuscaloosa, and he'll just text the president at Ole Miss and say, like, hey, just FYI, I'm heading to Tuscaloosa. I'll let you know if I get the job or not.
Right.
Like, he wants the Alabama job so bad, but I don't know that Bama's going to give it to him.
He's not going to get it. I'm just telling you right now, knowing what I know that I don't really want to talk about, he's not getting it. But what I will tell you, no, I'm positive. There's no,
not that one. Not that one.
He might get Texas A&M.
He could. He could if he wants it.
Because, well, I think he would take that. I mean, he's realizing now that what's holding him back is the amount of money that he doesn't have for NIL that they do. If they would hire him, I'm telling you right now, I wouldn't be surprised if an old Alabama walk-on receiver isn't someone that they think about trying to go after. A guy that won a championship for Alabama as a walk-on, used to catch passes from our friend Jay Barker. Guy by the name of Dabo. Would not be surprised because I think that he feels unappreciated. I think that that he, as well as things have gone, you saw how frustrated he was on that post-game show.
Tyler
from Spartanburg. And but I'm serious. I wouldn't be surprised. And I still think that if Nick Saban were to retire, that'd be the guy that Alabama should get if they could.
No, Alabama will not get Dabo.
Dabo's won 2 championships, Chad.
Alabama and will not hire Dabo.
I disagree with you. I don't know who they'll hire, but I think when you get into these, you always have these high expectations of who wants your job. And then all of a sudden, when you start like seeing who's available and who's got buyouts and all of that stuff, then all of a sudden it's like, I mean, let's look back over time. Like the job may seem like it's a great job right now, but are you going to be the one that wants to come in after Nick Saban? And then besides that, I mean, who wants to ever come in after the man? And there's not a clear-cut assistant for the job. And so a lot of it has to do with buyouts, availability, all that stuff. And I just think that when it all comes down to it, you're going to look around and you're going to be like, here's a guy that's beaten us twice for national championships, loves Alabama, can recruit, still comes in. He took a 5-star from Alabama and Auburn this year that played at Thompson High. I mean, the guy still does a good job. But we'll find, hopefully we won't have to find that answer out for that. But I could see him being a guy that Texas A&M kind of feels the same way about. Like, hey, you know what? Maybe we can go get him. But they did that last time. They went out and got a national championship coach, and it didn't work.
Dabo's actually a great pull by you. I would have said no chance a month ago. But given the season that Clemson has had, and I think they're 6-4 now, I think they go to North Carolina next week, and then they finish with South Carolina. So Clemson will probably end the year at least 7-5, maybe 8-4. Decent bowl, not to their recent standards, but 8-4.
Right.
But Dabo, I would have said no chance a month ago. Absolutely no chance. But given this season, given what took place on that coach's call-in show and the Tyler thing, And I don't keep up with Clemson on a day-to-day basis. I don't know if that's how the majority of their fans feel, or if that was just, the one-off backwoods guy that came out for the weekly call-in show and used a payphone next to a Chevron. I don't know. But if there is something going on, or if Dabo's looking around and they call him, this would be the one time you could see him heading out.
Right.
Like, I'll give you that one. It just at least adds up and makes sense.
Yeah.
For right
Well,
now. For
it's a
Dabo.
possibility, but I mean,
Yeah.
I got a feeling that to make this move, you have to have the guy that you want ready. Remember when Texas came to Tuscaloosa and they swooped up Sark? It was like, what? They just flew in one day and got a deal done. Got the hell out of town, right?
Yeah.
And it was a smart move. And they had who was their coach back then? Somebody that wasn't there very long. And then
it was Tom Herman.
Tom Herman, right? And they just came in, got the deal done, and rolled out. And it turned out to be and it turned out to be the right guy for the job.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if A&M has that same, if they're ready.
Well,
they
that
know
wouldn't
who they
surprise
want,
me.
Yeah.
The reason it wouldn't surprise me, I would say no, just because usually you hear a little bit of chatter, but it wouldn't surprise me only because they fired Jimbo after you beat Mississippi State. Not that they're any good, but you beat them 51-10 or whatever the final was. And so then the next day you get fired. It would have made more sense if it was like the frustration firing would have happened, I think, after the Ole Miss game.
Right.
Although they did, according to tweets that are out there, the Board of Regents met on Thursday, and that's when the decision was made. And they just decided, hey, finish out this weekend in the game, and then we'll announce it on Sunday.
Right.
So maybe it has nothing to do with it, but it is weird. The other thought is, hey, A&M, they may simply be in a spot where they're looking at it and going, you know what? Let's just simply get ahead of the game.
Yeah, right.
There's going to be a lot of coaches out there that are going to get canned over the next 2 to 3 weeks. So look at the SEC, Mick. Sam Pittman at Arkansas is possible.
Isn't that terrible too? The guy's done a decent job.
It took him better what Chad Morris had him.
Do you think he should go to Texas A&M and get Bobby Petrino to come back and be his offensive coordinator?
That would be hilarious. Bobby loves volleyball matches too. So, another coach that could be on his way out, and it's really split from what I can tell, is Billy Napier at Florida. Only 2 years in, it's not going well. They do suck.
Go get Coach Prime.
Well, and so Arkansas is not on the same level as A&M, right? But Florida is. Like, if you go, okay, 2 jobs are open, Florida and A&M. Well, different money situations, but from a brand and recruiting, and Florida has the hotbed and all that good stuff, and Florida does have some tradition. To me, in my eyes, those are somewhat similar type jobs. Another one is Michigan. What's going to happen with that job? So if A&M wants a national hire, Michigan's job could be open here in a few weeks also. So I don't know. They could just be getting out ahead of it instead of having their guy. Neither situation would surprise me.
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting to see. And, thankfully, I don't think Kevin Steele's going to be on anybody's head coaching list. So,
Neither is Tommy Rees.
Right. So we're not going to lose our coaches, moving forward here. So yesterday's win kind of bookended this entire SEC championship series, East versus West thing with the same team from the West who started it in 92, going back again in 23, and that's Alabama. So they're back in the winning the West again. I think it's like the 15th time that they've won. Remember, they also had a year where they couldn't go because of the NCAA, and they're going to play Georgia. And the crazy thing is that we really got to worry about Auburn before we can start getting into this Georgia-Alabama matchup. So this is going to be the toughest week of the entire season because you got the scrimmage against Chattanooga at 11 a.m. on Saturday.
Yeah.
And then you get to go into the Iron Bowl. And Auburn has won back-to-back games, and they kicked the crap out of Arkansas last game. So they're feeling good about themselves.
Well, they're getting better. They haven't played anybody worth a crap, but you still got to win the games. I mean, I think their last handful of games ever since getting embarrassed by LSU was against Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, and then Arkansas, I think were the three. So, Auburn's in just that spot where, hey, it's a team that's not very good, but they're gaining confidence. It doesn't matter who you beat, Mick. They're just gaining confidence. What's interesting, though, is this is supposed to be Cupcake Week, and Auburn is going to play New Mexico State, who I believe is one win away from clinching a berth in the Conference USA Championship game.
Really?
So whether that actually means anything in this game or not, but if you've got an Auburn team that's kind of down and then this other team that, hey, they're at least going to play for their conference title, it's, sorry, no offense here, but it's not the doormat that Chattanooga is going to be.
Yeah,
so,
right.
Yeah, it's just a tougher game than Chattanooga. But yeah, it's an annoying week. I use that word a lot because it just is the best description on a lot of this stuff. It's annoying. It's annoying.
Yeah.
There's nothing fun about this week. You're just buying time until the next week. But they ought to let Antonio Langham do the coin flip at the Dome. I'm sure they're not going to do that, but
no, that'd be cool.
But that would be cool. And you're right. This is the 15th time Alabama's 10-4 in these games, which is also pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
Saban's only lost one of them at Alabama. The Tide.
I was there against
every
Florida.
time Bama lost is Florida. Every time Bama lost, it was 93, 94, 96, and 08. Those four. And so it's always been Florida. Anytime Bama plays somebody else, they're undefeated. Bama's undefeated at games in the new Mercedes-Benz. So a lot of good things going for the Tide.
Yeah, but we got a trip to Jordan-Hare Stadium before that. So you can't really look at it that way. I mean, you got to just pay attention because you don't want the championship dream to be derailed by Auburn. And it would absolutely, it's always Lee County Super Bowl when Alabama comes to town.
It's just like 2021, Mick. Bama had the one loss. They go to Auburn. And at the end of that game, 4 overtimes, remember? And I remember just sitting here thinking, like, honest to God, like, who the hell cares that we play Georgia next week? Because if we lose this one, we're out of the playoff. And it just sucks all around. So, yeah, you're 100% right. You don't want to play Georgia in a watered down SEC championship because you lost your playoff opportunity by losing to Auburn the week before. That would
so we got to stay away from the rat poison.
Yeah. Did you hear he set rat traps around practice this week or last week?
Did he? I love it. I love that. I love the fact that he is like in. You know what I mean? Like he's having fun and he's in and he's ready for this team to do some stuff. And now we're to the point where we had to navigate. This Alabama team had to navigate from that really bad Texas game where you knew that if we got the ball, we weren't going to be able to do much with it, to now where we can put a drive together. We were able to mix in a lot of different guys. I love the fact that both tight ends ended up with big plays in the game. Dupree and Nye Black can both catch. You know, if it was Prentice yesterday, you didn't have Burton, didn't have Brooks, didn't matter. Whoever you throw the ball to catches it. The defense has been just getting better and better. When a man goes down, the next guy steps up, and there aren't superstars on this team. There are a bunch of guys that are working together and achieving a goal. And to think that Jalen Milroe has gotten to the point now where he's setting records at Alabama, him getting hurt, which I'm still sticking by, and having to be a drop back passer is the best thing that could have happened to him, because now that he's healthy, or he's getting healthy, and I know he took a shot on he got a Charlie horse yesterday, or a big ass bruise. But he can do it with he knows, he's confident. He can do it with the throw and he can do it with the run. I mean, he still has some work to do. Don't get me wrong. The offensive line it could continue to get better. But I thought the running game was Chase when Chase is in there. He's breaking tackles now. He's waiting on blocks to open. He's doing a nice job. So the offense has become an asset, not a liability. This isn't a team where you have to sit back and go, you know what, just don't lose it. Now it's like, hey, give us our ball. We'll do what we do, and you do what you do. Yeah. And so, in watching LSU just go straight down the field on Florida yesterday in that game, they're so good. Alabama took care of them. They could have shut out Kentucky without a couple of mistakes. They'll have this week against Chattanooga, and then it's going to be a tough game at Auburn, but I think it's going to be another one that Alabama will be ready for.
Yeah, it's one of those that you just look at the way this team has come together. And one other thing that's so big, so important, somebody said this right before the LSU game. I just heard it. I want to say it was more like national media or something. They were talking about how healthy Alabama was as a team going into the LSU game. Alabama's had dominant teams year in, year out under Nick Saban. But what do you always see a lot of times? Injuries, right? Like Alabama, they get injured a lot. And a lot of the reason in the past was some would say it was the strength and conditioning coach and the program and the way they were training and doing things and getting prepared. But then there were other people, and this is probably part of the truth as well, is when Alabama practices, and Saban has said this, the ones go against the ones.
Right.
And when you're banging on each other all the time, and then you go out and you play LSU, you play Tennessee, you play Auburn, you play somebody else earlier, middle of the year, you play Texas early in the year. Like, you end up with just constant nicks and dings and bruises and rolled ankles and
well, that was Lane Kiffin's biggest complaint about Nick Saban.
Right. Yeah, you get all of that, right? And so Alabama, a lot of times, remember the Iron Bowl? I forget the other player, but there were two players. One of them was Terrell Lewis. Terrell Lewis, I want to say it was his arm or his elbow, like dislocated something or broke it or did something with a tendon like early in the year or in the off season. And he was out, but then he made it back for the Iron Bowl.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, remember? That was cool. Yeah.
But that's what I mean.
The Undertaker theme.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's what funny. I mean. Like, Alabama is or has a lot of times been in spots where they're just so banged up that they come down the stretch and they kind of limp to the finish line. But I think you're right. Other people are right. I was on a pretty good run of kind of knowing how a game would play out. I missed the Kentucky game. I really thought it would be tighter than it was. And when I saw that, this team, even with a little bit of the nicks right now, you mentioned it with Ja'Cory Brooks, with Lawson, with Jalen Key. Alabama has a few here and there, but they're all guys who are going to be back.
Yeah,
there's nobody lost for the year. There's nobody out until the playoff if you make it. Nobody out till the bowl game. These guys are coming back. And so when you've got this team with this attitude and the healthiness and, say it, I know it pisses people off, but they're going to get a week off again this Saturday. They're going to be ready.
I don't care.
They're going to, They're going to be ready. And that's what excites me is you're going to have a healthy Alabama team going into the final 2 weeks of the year.
Right. It's going to be loud, but honestly, I feel like this team's ready for the challenge of going into Auburn and playing at Jordan-Hare and it being loud. And I think that this team has been through it and now they're focused. Like this team is really fun and dangerous.
They are.
We need some work. We need some help. It would be so nice if Oregon beat Washington. Yeah. Or if someone beat Oregon, or if someone beat Washington, or Florida State lost, because if it comes down to everybody wins, it's going to be sweat time because there's going to be people that aren't going to put Alabama in just like last year, even though they know that Alabama, if they beat Georgia, is one of the best 4 teams, just because they're sick and tired of seeing Alabama host that trophy.
Let me just tell you this now. You save it, clip it, bookmark it, whatever you want. Washington loses this Saturday.
Whoa.
They lose on the road to Oregon State this Saturday. It happens. It's a guarantee.
Okay.
Take Oregon State money line, put the mortgage on it. The Beavers are winning in Corvallis on Saturday. So that's going to take care of one. So now you're going to have Oregon, Washington playing each other, each with one loss though.
Right.
And then Alabama. But I think that's just so key is for Washington to lose because I think Oregon will beat them the second time.
Yeah.
And so I want Washington losing because I want when Oregon beats them, I want it to be watered down.
Yeah.
I don't want Washington undefeated. So
yeah.
So, but I'm telling you, that one's happening. It's happening this Saturday night. It's a done deal, Mick. You write that one down.
Okay. All right. The game on Saturday, and I think we mentioned it on another show, but it was 11-11, and it was right. Remember, and Alabama was an 11-point favorite, and it was at 11 a.m. Yeah, right. So it's just pretty funny, but. We were talking about how those 11 o'clock games, they're like upset games or whatever. But Alabama and Nick Saban never. It's not an upset game when Alabama plays at 11. They've won all of them, right? Since which game? Do you remember the last time they lost an 11 o'clock game and who their opponent was? Because it wasn't Saban.
God, you asked. Oh, it was Mississippi State and Sylvester Croom.
Nope.
It wasn't. All right, hang on. No. It was not a Saban coach game or team. All right. Well, Bama played State in late October, early November of 2006 and lost that game. Then it was Louisiana Monroe.
The last time
that was Saban though.
No. The last time that they lost, it wasn't 11. The last time they lost an 11 o'clock game was in the Music City Bowl against Minnesota.
Yeah,
Minnesota. Our buddy Spencer Pennington was the quarterback, and he overthrew a receiver at the end of the game to win. I was there too. I sat with our buddy Hollywood Lassiter, and
I thought we sat together. Did we not?
Did you sit with us? We were in like the first row
of the upper deck.
Yeah, I was sitting with you. Yeah. That was. With was Hollywood, right?
Lawrence Maroney. Well, see, I thought
because Ben got us the tickets.
Yeah, but I thought Hollywood was in Hollywood was only Shreveport.
Yeah, maybe it was because you're right. I remember now. Our friend Ben got us the tickets.
Yeah, but that was Marion Barber, Lawrence Maroney.
Yes,
the running backs for Minnesota.
Yeah, Minnesota.
Yeah. This is the thing. Like I'm trying to talk trash before the game, and Bama fans are so excited that we're in a bowl game in 2004. Yeah, in 2004. And so I'm like looking at them. I'm just trying to talk trash and say anything, and they run out of the tunnel, and they've got 4 flags, and it says SOTA, soda, and I was like, soda, what the hell is that? Who does that? What are they? And then Mick over here just wants to rain on the parade, and he looks at me. You look at me dead serious. You're like, you mean like Bama? Hey, shut the hell up, Mick. I'm trying to get in the zone here, man. And you're just like,
I don't even remember, but I remember hanging out with you.
It was a fun time.
Man. Yeah, good times.
So, was Mississippi State 11:30?
I don't know. I somebody else was the one that fed me that, but I don't remember when that one was.
Yeah, it had to be 11:30.
Yeah, or noon. Because it's like with college football, you may have a kickoff time that's like 11:53. Just for some reason, like who knows? And then the next night you're playing at 7:47.
I think State was we still had Jefferson Pilot back then.
Yeah, the Jefferson.
So I think Pilot. It was 11:30 Jefferson Pilot. Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Oh, it's so funny. All right, man. Well, look, you're gonna man the fort this week. I'm on a staff retreat. I'm gonna try to pop in, but make sure that you guys like and subscribe and hang out with us. We'll be covering this Alabama Chattanooga game as tight as humanly possible as Alabama gets set to scrimmage on Saturday and then take on the Auburn Tigers. Thanks for hanging out with us, guys. Roll Tide.